Okay, hello, my name is Derrick with 2 R's. For my topic today, it's 3 strikes laws in the United States. First, I'll provide some background. They've been around for a while. The first one was probably in the 18th century in New York, and then Texas implemented one in the 50s. But the real surge in 3 strike laws or habitual offender laws was in the 90s. Between 1993 and 1995, 24 states enacted 3 strikes laws as a result of a perceived crime wave and several high-profile homicides by repeat offenders. The most infamous of these laws was in California, which was really broad, which is why it was infamous, and because of that, it's been modified twice, once in 2012 and once in 2015. Defining a 3 strikes law, it's a habitual offender law. It's defined by uslegal.com as a category of statutes enacted by states that require long periods of imprisonment for persons convicted of 3 or more felonies on separate occasions. Now, for my main claim is that 3 strikes laws in the United States have had a negative effect on the states that have enacted them. To support this, I'd say they cost taxpayers millions of dollars each year. They have a negligible effect on reducing crime. They have several unforeseen social consequences. For my first claim, they're very expensive. They cost taxpayers millions of dollars. And the California Legislative Analysis Office estimates that as of 2005, it costs $500 million a year to implement. One of the reasons they're so expensive is since they increase mandatory minimums, they result in longer sentences. With Law and Society Review, a study finding that it raised the odds of a prison sentence nearly 23%, and among those sentences of prisons, maximum sentences grew 6% longer. Longer sentences result in prisoners being in prison longer, which results in a higher prison population. And as they're in prison longer, older prisoners cost more because of health costs. And the longer sentences have reduced plea deals and increased the number of jury trials, which of course are more expensive. If you're more likely to get a maximum sentence and you're on your 3rd strike, then you're less likely to take a plea and more likely to have a jury trial. Analysis in 1994 suggested it would result in additional state prison operation costs by a few $1 billion annually, increasing to $6 billion annually by 2026. It hasn't been that much, but it still has been expensive. This is also by Legislative Analyst's Office. And the price would be, if you're really reducing crime, then it's worth it. But several studies have shown that it is not. So that's my second point, is that 3 strikes laws have had a negligible or unclear effect in reducing crime. The first series of these studies came out right after the laws were enacted in like 1998 and 1997. One by Stolzenberg. They estimated that it would not have a maximum likelihood results indicated that 3 strikes law did not have a serious crime or petty theft rates below that level expected on the basis of pre-existing trends. So while crime has gone down, it hasn't correlated with the actual laws. A study between 1989 and 2000 by Journal of Criminal Justice, when county-specific trends were accounted for, no specific significant effect in reducing crime was found. And the most recent one was by a PhD dissertation in 2011. They said, relying on fixed FX estimation and state-level panel data from 50 states in the United States for the period of 1980 to 2009, the study assesses the impact of 3 strikes laws on crime rates in the United States, controlling the effects of demographic and economic variables. The results show that 3 strike laws have an overall statistically insignificant positive relationship with crime rates. And then the last point that I have is that they have resulted in several additional unforeseen social consequences. ACLU says that the laws make life sentences without parole mandatory on 3rd strike, taking any discretion from judges and granting more power to prosecutors. And because many of these laws include drug offenses as prior strikes, more black and white offenders will be subject to life sentences under the 3 strikes law. Part of a previous study in the Law and Society Review, they said since the law went into effect, black defendants received significantly longer prison sentence than Anglos or Latinos, which shows that discrimination is worsened by the law. And also, in a National Bureau of Economic Research study, they found that to avoid the 3rd strike, criminals commit crimes in neighboring states. Separate from within-state effectiveness of 3 strikes is the effect that such harsh penalties have on other states. The 3 strikes appear to have imposed 50,000 crimes on other states with the migration of criminals out of California. So if they're on their 3rd strike, rather than risk committing crimes in that state, they'll move to other states, which just moves the problem along. Because 3 strikes flatten the penalty grading with respect to severity. If one felony counts the same as another felony, if you're on your 3 strikes, criminals are more likely to commit violent crimes. And that probability of committing violent crimes increased 9 percentage points. 3 strikes laws were also associated with a 33% increase of risk in fatal assaults on law enforcement officers for people on their 3rd strike because they're more likely to use violence if they know they're going to get a mandatory life sentence. So in conclusion, if it's costing taxpayers millions of dollars extra and it does not have a clear impact on crime, it has other side effects besides that, it's clear to say that 3 strikes laws in the United States have had a negative effect.
All right, Derrick, with 2 R's. The proposition is clear. I think that you preview the contents pretty well, but you kind of rush through them at the beginning. Take your time. Fortunately, they are signposted well in the body of the speech, so it's not a big problem, but there's no reason to rush at the beginning. Let people absorb the argument that you're going to present. I thought you did a good job presenting a variety of information and background on the subject. The impact on crime data is pretty good, although the numbers are a little confusing. I found, in fact, that last section to almost contradict the first point, because if there are 50,000 crimes that are committed out of state, that seems to suggest that the 3 strikes law is having an effect on somebody, and you're suggesting that it's had a minimal effect. So that feels a little inconsistent with the argument that you're presenting. But the other evidence I thought was pretty solid. Doing the comparisons, you had a variety of research that suggested that there was a minimal impact on these sorts of things. The cost issue, it's interesting that the legislative analyst has actually acknowledged that it wasn't quite as high as they predicted it was going to be 20 years ago. We don't really get a contemporary number. We're still, I guess, working on the projection as to what's going to happen in 2030. So I think that that's a little bit problematic. The argument about unforeseen consequences, the argument about the sentencing for blacks versus whites, I guess it's a general impact on the population as opposed to individual sentences, because obviously individual sentences, if it's a life sentence, 3 strikes and you're out, the sentence is automatically the same. So what they're doing here is they're looking at what the combined average sentence is, and that's what increases it. That is a interpretation of the data that is reasonable. I think that's a place where the respondent will have some grounds to make an argument as well. And then, like I said, I thought it was a little bit contradictory to have that other piece of information in your argument. It's nicely presented, it's well organized, and you have lots of sources to back up your claim, so that's good. All right, thank you.